Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone is doing well today. I was going to do some more outside walking, but it looks like we're going to be having rain for several days now. But there's a topic, it's especially something that I have been dealing with recently that I thought would be helpful to talk about. And it really goes along with, walking our path, part of spiritual awakening, and also part of the healing process. All of it really ties together all the time. But what I wanted to talk about was balancing ourselves, which is, it's really, really important to do. And I think part of the problem is, and again, please take what resonates. What I'm speaking of is my personal experience. Part of the problem that I ran into, or the difficulty, I wouldn't really call it a problem, but I turned it into a little bit of one. When we're balancing, you're trying to balance not really just your internal world, but your external world as well. It's kind of like keeping one foot in the 3D world and then one foot in the spiritual or 5D world. However you personally refer to it. And that can be a little bit tricky. And for myself, I know over the last couple of months in particular, I have become, see that bird just fly past? I have become increasingly unbalanced, and I'd say 3/4 of me was really in the spiritual, and only a quarter of me was here with myself grounded. And that's why grounding is so important for us, to stay grounded, because it's like, I think of a helium balloon. You know what happens, a helium balloon, when you have it on a string and someone's holding on to it, it's all working out great, right? There's a balance there. If you let it go, it just floats away into the ether, and that doesn't end well. Likewise, if you push it down on the ground and try and hold it down in that manner, you're just going to pop it. So you have to be in that in between, that balanced middle place, and not be too much in one area or another. It's like if we are spending or putting more of our energy and our time into our 3D world, then you run the risk of being sucked down into negative energies and being more in the ego. Now, the trick, of course, is how to balance this. And I think it goes back to coming back to our center and sort of checking ourselves in a way, kind of on a regular basis, to see what's going on, because part of what happened to me had a lot to do with just a big shakeup in my life and a lot of things going on, multiple moves, not just for myself, but, for my daughter and her fiance, planning the wedding, which just took place, and all kinds of fun chaos with that, which usually happens with weddings, even small ones. It was supposed to be outside and our weather turned, and we had to quickly try and move it inside. So there's been a lot going on, and I was not practicing self-care like I should have been at all. And so because I was not practicing that self-care, I was not really checking how I was doing. And I was running myself down. I was exhausting myself, and I slipped into a mode where I was really spending most of my energy, when I wasn't running around sort of in 3D doing these things, just completely absorbed in the spiritual side of my life. So I just kind of would release a lot of the 3D world, which isn't, again, that's just so extremely unbalanced. And part of the problem of doing that is you really open yourself up. It's good to have that open connection between ourselves and source, our spirit guides. That is just really, really needed for the journey. But when you allow too much of yourself. You become unbalanced. You're not staying grounded. To be absorbed into that area of things, you can become a conduit for other like information and things to come through that you don't really want, that aren't really good for you. And this is kind of the wake-up call that I got. Was it became apparent that some of the messages and things that I was starting to receive were not coming from the source, which is where you want to get your messages from. And how you can tell. A lot of people would say, well, how in the world do you know? Which is a good question, because, there are entities and energies which are great at mimicking, right? So they can mimic the same, they can give you messages and synchronicities and signs in a similar way. But whereas the messages that tend to come from the universe and the spirit guides tend to be a little more subtle sometimes, or they'll give you a message and then they kind of step back and see what you are doing. I found that sometimes when you are flooded with messages at one time, you can kind of question it just a little bit. Sometimes it might be the universe just really super trying to get your attention, but the very nature of the message or messages themselves is a big indicator. And because I was kind of in this really exhausted state of not taking care of myself, I wasn't really paying attention. I was just kind of very much dialed open, right? And dialed in. And it's like, I started to notice I was feeling really like I was being dragged from pillar to post, like a kite being buffeted around in the wind. And that's a really good sign when you are getting contradictory messages or signs. That's a good sign that you might be receiving messages or signs from a source that you don't want to be receiving them from. So at that point, I really had to check myself. I had to kind of pull myself completely out, because then I had to dial back and say, okay, for what length of time have I been in this place, and what has been the manner, what has been the purpose behind whatever messages I've been receiving, and how do I decipher out which ones are the correct ones and which ones are not. And that's pretty easy at the end of the day, because I can follow my intuition and I can follow my heart, and I know what is the correct message and what is not. So I kind of just really had to do like a major purge of everything. I had to just step myself back, and in doing so, I made an error really, because I was already in an extreme situation of being out of balance. And then instead of just kind of checking myself and then making an adjustment, which would have been the correct thing to do, I did the opposite of what I should have done. And no excuses for it. I just really was not thinking. I was not thinking. I reacted instead of responded to my situation, which, as we know, is never a good thing to do. It isn't. So in my zeal to kind of disconnect myself, which is basically what I did from my spiritual connection, I just really wanted to, when I realized what was going on, I shut everything down. That was kind of what it was. I was like, okay, I need to shut down and purge anything that I have allowed in that is a negative energy, or entity. I don't want to be open to any more messages or things that I don't need to be receiving. But in order to do that, I really had to kind of pull myself completely out of that spiritual connection and dump myself, like a rock down in the 3D world completely. And I can tell you, when you've really been hovering mostly out of it, it's kind of very like a rude awakening. I don't know if anybody else has experienced this. I feel like others have. I mean, definitely there's no way it's just me. Somebody else has to have gone through this, what I've been dealing with. But it was an error to do so. I should have really taken my time and thought about it and responded from, a very calm place. But what I did instead, in part due to just my state of exhaustion, is I hit like a panic button type of thing. And so it was just like for those that know, with my tarot readings, it was like the Queen of Swords. I just got my swords out and I was cutting all connections with everything, severing all connections with everything to try and remove myself from what I realized was just not good. And in doing so, I dumped myself into lower energies in the 3D. So I kind of went from the frying pan into the fire, in a manner of speaking, which was not good. Because for most of you who've been watching me for any time at all know that I'm a very peaceful, calm person. It's taken me a lifetime to get there, and a lot of lessons and growth and things, but I'm just generally a very loving, peaceful, calm person. And I tend to try and stay in that place where I'm not being triggered by things. And it's been a very long time since I've felt like there was something that really pulled me out of that peaceful place, or where I couldn't, I've even, dealt with things where people were coming at me sort of aggressively, and I would either just remove myself from it or step back and try and deal in a calm manner and see, where is this individual coming from? And I just had a moment, which I felt terrible for, where I reacted. I didn't respond. I reacted to someone, and I didn't yell or scream or anything like that, because that's just not really my personality. But the things that I said, folks, I said them harshly. And at the time, I was so steeped in like lower negative energies and just not in a good balanced place at all. I should, in truth, not been having any conversations with anybody until I sat down and centered myself and did some meditation and got myself where I needed to be. But it's been like nonstop running, like I said, with everything going on. And I didn't take the time, which I should have, whether it was 1 a.m. or whatever time it was, to do that. So I'm hoping this is helpful. If anybody goes through something like this, whatever you're doing, folks, take the time for yourself to stop and center yourself and get yourself where you need to be so you don't have this happen. So long story short, I ended up popping off, my version of popping off at somebody, because I spoke truth, but I did it in a harsh manner, which is not, I would never want someone to speak in that manner to me, and certainly I would never want to speak in that manner to anyone else. And it even took me, even after this conversation was over, it took me time to bring myself out of that negative energy. It was just very heavy, very awful negative energy, and I hadn't felt it for years now. So it was really, it took me to, I think it was a humbling thing, guys. It was a big humbling thing for me, because there's a lesson in everything that we do, that I need to be paying more attention to where my energy is and what I'm doing. Even if I'm running around doing a million things like we all tend to do in our lives, I need to really take that time, and I need to center myself, come back to center and check myself and see how I'm doing and what's going on. So I did end up apologizing to the individual for my tone, and they very graciously accepted the apology and said, well, everything that you said was true, but I wish I had not delivered that information in the manner in which I did. So now I am going to be taking several days to bring myself, to get outside and ground myself, but to sort of slowly open myself back up, my spiritual connection, which I've been doing overnight in the last few hours, but in a way that feels balanced to me, in a way where I know that I am not dipping too far in one direction or another, that I am, I always think back to on the playgrounds, they used to have the seesaws, and you would have a kid on either end, and if they balanced it just right, it could stay up in the air. And sometimes if there was no one else on it, you could stand in the middle of it and balance it. If you had your weight equally distributed, 1 foot on one side, 1 foot on the other, you could actually balance it and have it up off the ground. So I kind of use that analogy for myself when I'm thinking about, okay, I really need to be more purposeful in keeping 1 foot in the 3D world and keeping 1 foot in the spiritual world, or the 5D world, however folks like to call it. So, and it's necessary when we're on our path. It's like if we're sucked up so much in the spiritual world, we do open ourselves up to a lot more, but also we're not doing the things that we need to do in our 3D world as well. And that was kind of brought home to me really when I kind of looked at, okay, what's been going on, what have I been doing, and, what kind of messages or motivations have I been following. And I kind of sat there in a quandary when this first happened, and just feeling a little bit of panic, which again is not, you don't want to be in the panic or fear mode. These are lower energies and they are not helpful at all. Don't make decisions when you're in these lower energies, guys. Don't make decisions. And happily, I didn't make any major decisions. But I did kind of pull myself out of it. And the message that came through from Source loud and clear, because I just was like, how do I know? Who can I trust? What message can I trust? And the message from Source came through loud and clear, and it said, trust yourself. So again, we come back to the same thing of self-care, self-love, taking time, even in our busy, crazy days, and when we have a lot going on, to like balance out those energies and balance out our focus and attention as well. So this is a lesson I'm really, really going through right now. I feel like it's just going to be an ongoing thing, and something that for me personally, I need to pay more attention to in my world. I need to pay a lot more attention to it. So if anybody has been going through this, I feel for you. It's not easy. It's really not easy. I'm taking the lessons from it big time, and I'm going to move forward in a more peaceful state. And if I feel myself kind of leaning or leading in one direction, I'm just going to take a pause. I'm just going to take a pause that evening, that day, whenever I have time, whatever's going on, and I'm going to bring myself back to center. And I'm going to, feel out the energies and see, where am I going off at this time, and bring myself back to where I need to be. So I think that's so, so crucial. And some of it, has to do with, when you're manifesting and you're putting things out there and you're doing it when your life is kind of chaotic, it can bring chaotic results as well. It just happens. So some of it was things also were coming into my life that I feel like consciously or subconsciously I may have been manifesting just because of how chaotic things were. So I did see a video that I really, really wanted to recommend to everybody because it was super helpful. It's not so much about balancing yourself out, but it is about, trusting the universe, which is part and parcel of it. Trusting ourselves. I mean, our creator, the higher power, is in us and with us always. So we are a part of it. So trusting yourself and trusting that higher power that has the bigger plan and the bigger picture is kind of really, really helpful, because sometimes we get out of balance too when we have our hands on the wheel and we're trying to turn it a hard right when really it should be going left, because sometimes we don't always know what the best thing is for ourselves. So staying present and working and walking on our path and doing what we're supposed to do, being balanced and, growing, healing, and improving things is good. But sometimes we do have to kind of let go a little bit and let the universe do things for us that are for our highest good. And I can't help but feel like the process I've just gone through was definitely something that was meant to happen to kind of switch my focus up for a little bit now. So I did want to recommend this video. The gentleman's name is Rich Lopp, Lopp, and this is on YouTube. And he's a tarot reader also, so many of you may even know him. But he has a video out called Let the Universe Work Miracles for You. It's short, but it's really, he does a wonderful job of just explaining things and being like clear and to the point of what you need to do in these situations, and how we can really, allow the universe to help us, because sometimes we're just making things harder in our lives. And I feel like part of my imbalance, my unbalancing act that I did, was definitely me trying to take more control and not allowing things, and then jumping to one side more than the other. So we need to come back to center. We need to spend more time in meditation. These things all help us. So I'm going to kind of leave this here. If anybody has been through anything like this and wants to drop any comments about it, that's always appreciated for everybody's benefit. I hope this is helpful to somebody. If you get into this situation where you find yourself, spending way too much time in the spiritual realm, and not, and if you feel like you're getting mixed messages or contradictory messages, please don't do what I did. Don't just unplug completely and dump yourself into lower energies, because that is just a bad thing to do. That's my piece of advice for just, if we can, and we're human, right? So we are going to make mistakes, we're going to do things, and at the end of the day, we hopefully always learn from them and do better next time around. So I'm going to stay in, come back to center, stay in my peaceful, unconditional love and calm mode for a while now. So, I will be coming back with more videos on different topics. There's some couple things that cropped up to me that I would love to touch base on, and hopefully will be helpful to someone. Also, I have a couple of readings. They're like themed readings that I got a nod to do, so I'll do those. And then just a reminder that the tarot deck giveaway for April is underway, the Herb Crafters Tarot. So if anyone wants to get in on that, just let me know in the comments. Okay, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and let me know in the comments that you want to be entered in, and we will do that drawing for that tarot deck on April 30th in the morning. So thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate you watching. I hope everyone is doing just the very best that they can. Hang in there, please. Life can be challenging, but we can be there for each other. We can uplift one another, and the universe does have our back. Okay, so please hang in there and know that you are not alone when you are going through these things. Okay. And if there is any topics or anything that you guys want to talk about, please just let me know in the comments, and I'll be happy to talk about them. All right, everybody, I'm sending you all love, peace, and unity. Stay well and stay safe. I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.